What's going on, everybody? It's Frito here for Clickheads. Finally, big patch notes 1.02 have been released. There's tons of new stuff in this patch to break down. But first, the question on everybody's mind, when are we getting the patch and when can we play ranked? Depending on what region in the world you're in, this may be different for you. Valraz on Reddit spotted a maintenance notification that tipped the hat of when the patch was going to be rolled out. Again, it's going to be a staggered release throughout the globe like it did in previous patches, with NA, Brazil, and Latin America going first, 1300 to 1700 UTC tonight, and Europe tomorrow morning, 3 a.m. to 7 a.m. tomorrow, and APAC and Korea following late tomorrow night and even into Thursday morning. But that's just the patch itself. That's where all the changes that we're going to be discussing will be going into the game. Ranked itself is on a separate release. Rioter Armies of the Night clarifies this on Reddit, saying that the patch will go global, then they'll make sure they have general stability, then they'll turn on ranked. So we believe, based on his wording here, that ranked itself is on a separate switch and they'll turn it on all at once, though they didn't do that in the beta. People got ranked at different times depending on the region, so just keep that in mind. It may be desynced or it might be all at once, but regardless, when you get the patch right away, you're not going to have ranked until they turn it on in your region, if not the entire globe. Now, with that out of the way, let's get into the patch notes themselves. The big Viper buff coming through. Toxic screen now burns through walls, placing emitters at all valid locations over its length. The devs admit that there was only a few very strong spots for Viper to put down toxic screen in the previous version, but now there'll be many, many more crafty locations to place the wall. And most important to me, you won't have the risk of there being gaps in it due to it falling awkwardly, getting blocked by something. Don't have to worry about that anymore. Now it'll be much more straightforward. And the other change to snake bite. So it's going to do the same individual damage that you're used to, but it applies a fragile debuff that will increase damage taken from other sources. So especially combined with another molly, a nade, shock dart, or even some pre-fire through smokes, Snakebite now will have some extra punishing power and will help her compete up against the S-tier Molotovs of Brimstone, I'd say, as right now his is kind of the strongest. Keep in mind, Viper does get 2 of these, so although it takes a little bit more work to get that extra damage out, I think, it does buff up her delay and flushing options. But an important nerf came through to Viper as well that we didn't know about prior to the patch dropping. This one increases the poison orb activation cooldown from half a second to 6 full seconds. Massive nerf. The devs explained that they like the Viper one-way smoke, where you place a smoke on top of a box or on a window ledge or somewhere, pop it on so that you can see the enemy's legs and they can't see you. It seems like that's going to be some important map knowledge for the game of Valorant, but the devs explained that it was a little too strong, seeing as you could very quickly reactivate it whenever you needed it and didn't have to manage the timing as much, where they're saying here this big delay between uses hopefully will keep that strategy from being viable, but make it less of a suicide rush to attempt to go through it. Keep in mind, I think they're also accounting for the snake bite buff here as well, which is an added tool for her to delay those kinds of pushes. You're going to have an increased power with that ability, but now the poison orb one-ways have a bigger gap, and quite a big gap, I'd say, to exploit. 6 full seconds. Once you see her click it off again, you got a big window to rush through. Will this significantly change Viper's power ranking? Well, you're going to have to click the bell icon to be sure to be notified when my tier list video goes live later today. We'll be working on that after this one. For now, though, let's get on to the rest of the patch. Both Jett and Reyna have a buffed interaction when going up against Phoenix's Run It Back. Now, the decoy life will refresh Jett's Blade Storm and will give Reyna a Soul Orb, which I think is really strong in both cases, and kind of a nerf to Phoenix, actually, where going aggressive against those agents really slowed down their momentum when they're fully momentum-based agents, right? So a buff to them and a nerf to Phoenix in that interaction. Changes to Cypher. These are more niche, buggy type interactions that they shored up. I haven't seen any of these anywhere, didn't even know about them, so just gonna move on. This next change I do think is very significant, though. The smokes are being tuned. Now, the goal here in this smoke rework is to make it less punishing on players that want to take the calculated risk of running through a smoke. The devs say they want it to still be risky, but more reasonable, and here's the change itself. They've adjusted the tuning around the screen effects when exiting and entering the smoke. So there's going to be a decreased blind fall-off value, as well as a decreased nearsighted intensity. Now, based on how they're explaining this, we're assuming that this is going to have a bigger effect on the filled smokes of the game. So for example, Jett's Cloudburst and possibly most importantly, Brimstone's Sky Smokes, which up to this point were the best smokes in the game. They didn't nerf Brim in this patch directly, but this smoke rework may nerf him more than we expected, where if you're not nearsighted as much in the smoke, you're gonna have less of two players walking past each other in a Brim smoke, like two ships passing in the night in the middle of a fog, but also with a decreased blind fall-off value, I think it's gonna be a bit more of a transition to exit the smokes rather than seeing nothing. And this is a really big deal to me, I think, because one of the strongest things about Brim smokes is that most times, even when the player was trying to run through them, a defending player looking at the smoke often would see their gun barrel or one of their limbs sticking out before the moving player had a chance to get their camera out of the smoke to have a chance in the duel. We've spoken a lot on this channel about the defensive-minded meta that we've had in Valorant from beta up till now, and this low-key is another chip in the armor of that balance philosophy, opening up for more aggression. I don't think we're going to be in CSGO Stewie 2K territory yet, but you certainly aren't going to get the level of guaranteed delay out of those smokes as you used to, and it's gonna be something that we'll be monitoring. Next up, there was a Bucky rework where there was actually a discrepancy with how they were applying movement inaccuracy with the different movement states. It was a bit out of whack, where the Bucky's run accuracy was way better than they wanted it to be. That has been nerfed, but its walk accuracy has been buffed. So the important thing to note here is crouch walking and running, the Bucky won't be as accurate with its right click as it used to be, but now you're going to get that similar level of power when you're walking, so you're going to want to adjust your gameplay accordingly to make use of that. Patch notes remind us that competitive mode will be made available during this patch. With updated rank icons, the top rank now will be called Radiant, no longer Valorant in the game of Valorant, which didn't make any sense, and they're widening the range for you to be able to play your placements with your friends in ranked. Keep in mind that they had commented earlier in a different blog post that they realize the criticisms that high-level players are having about the dynamic queue system, the downsides of allowing 5 stacks at any level of play, even the highest ones, and it's something that they're going to be working on this year, but no change to that system quite yet. Next up, they've made changes to every map in the game to try to improve gameplay. A lot of these were pretty subtle and hard for me to see in these screenshots, so we're going to be making a dedicated separate video to break down the map changes. The devs do explain their intention here with these changes, saying we're peeling back a bit on the amount of locations that require ability usage, thorough angle checking, or teamwork to clear safely. The intention is that angles that are more difficult to clear are most commonly found in areas meant to reinforce existing territory control. This is to emphasize ability usage and teamwork in order to reliably gain control of these locations. An added benefit is that this encourages ability usage and combat engagements to be spread out across the map, which can help prevent the frequency of scenarios where all the players expend all their abilities and ultimates in the same place at the same time. We'll continue monitoring how the maps are playing and make adjustments as necessary. This is a very interesting strategy that they're putting forth. We'll have to see if this ends up being the case. What they're describing here is a criticism that I've heard from a lot of players about the map flow, where the TLDR of it is that there's a lot of spots and limited numbers of abilities. So because of that, there tends to be a very concentrated exchange on maps in order to get anywhere. Now, they say in the blog post that their intention is to allow you to split up more, but I think what's more likely to happen is that players go to the same spots and just get more ground for their abilities and have more abilities later into the round. I don't know if this necessarily makes splitting up better than playing together. That might have more to do with agent balance, in my opinion. But either way, this sort of universal change to the maps, I think, will make attacking and retaking both easier, where there's just less spots to clear when you're trying to move into a spot. More patch notes here. There has been significant changes to the HUD and the UI. I'm not going to get into depth with this, but a lot of stuff is getting moved around, including the battle pass itself, the contracts and agents section, so expect that. To the quality of life changes, there are significant updates here. An early surrender option has been added. You can call for an early surrender vote by typing /FF, forfeit, concede, or surrender. An early surrender vote requires all present players on the surrendering team to vote yes to pass. So if someone lags out, you need 4. You only get 1 vote per half. You can't vote prior to round 8. If it's called during a round, it'll be queued up for the next round, though you can do it right away in the buy menu. And this last section, I assume, is for MMR reasons. The winning team will be credited the up to 13 rounds it would have taken to reach the victory condition, and the surrendering team will get a loss credit for that being the case. There's now a setting that allows you to permanently mute text from enemy players, and significant changes to the tagging system, which is the slowdown effect that kicks in when you get hit by enemy bullets. The move speed reduction per tag will now be 70%, 10% less, and as well a 10% nerf when you are penetrating a wall. You'll get slowed only 25% now, but they increase the time it takes to reach the desired slow amount when tagged by 100%. The devs explain this by saying you will now more gradually transition to the reduced tagging speed, and in addition, the speed itself is slightly more forgiving. This should let you play a bit looser around cover, especially jiggle peeking and stuff. That'll be quite a bit better now. All things considered, players will have more movement, and when you combine that with making it easier to exit smokes, I mean, getting tagged in a smoke is one of the more common ways I find that I get tagged and it screws me up. Both these changes are kind of making the game a little bit more aggressive, but perhaps not in a major way. I would bundle these together as ways Riot are trying to shift the clog meta to be a little bit less punishing. Now, they also made mode updates to Spike Rush, which there was some annoying mechanics in there that they've reined in and also added some more interesting ones, we think. There's a new orb type called a Tracer Orb, which gives you 2 times wall penetration and reveals the enemies for 3/4 of a second when they are hit. So that means you tag somebody, they try to get away, and you can wallbang them. Yeah, I know it's crazy. Well, Spike Rush is a crazy game mode, so strap in. Now, the Speed Boost Orb has been renamed to Combat Stim. It still gives you the speed boost, but it also gives you increased reload time, weapon draw time, spread recovery time, rate of fire goes up, your jump goes up, so you just turn into a super soldier with speed boost on. Listen, I've always loved tech shooters, but I was a Quake fan originally, so seeing this kind of upgrade, I think, really makes Spike Rush a bit better, especially when you combine with the other major change that the community was kind of in an uproar about. Plague Orbs and Deception Orbs. Now, only one of these will be chosen per game, so you can't have both of them kind of gumming up the works of the action. Only one of these 2 obnoxious orbs can spawn per round. The health reduction is less severe on the Plague Orb, only decreases you down to 50, and the Deception Orb is less severe. You can see a bit more on your screen, and its duration is only 8 seconds, not 10, the same as Plague Orb. That's great. Some optimization fixes were in this patch, as well as many more bug fixes. Perhaps most importantly at the top of the list, your Sovereign skins are now fixed and unlockable properly. The Sovereign Ghost now is upgradable, where that was locked before. And last up for the patch notes, competitive match overtime in this patch will be resolved using sudden death, which a lot of players don't like, and Riot admits that they know it is intrinsically unfair, and they're actively working on replacing this with a more fair solution. But for now, it's a bit lopsided. The way the system works is that you play one final round on the side you already were on, with a fixed economy and ultimate status. Now, luckily, I don't think this is too severe, because typically, if a team gets the favored side first, they get quite a big lead starting off the game, and I think normally might be favored on that map overall. But if you are on the bad side first, you'll be the one that gets the benefit of the sudden death mechanic, playing the better side last for the final round. So I personally don't mind this system too much. It could be far worse. I'm sure there's gonna be a lot of different opinions on this one. Like, I don't really want to go down an MR5 or MR10 again and play the whole map again, essentially. I kind of just want to move on. The games are already long enough as it is, but if you want the most competitive system, you're gonna have to sacrifice some time to get that SR, playing on a more tournament or LAN favored format. Well, guys, that's everything for the patch roundup. We've We've got a lot more videos and a lot more news to break down that are going to be coming in separate videos. So you want to be sure to hit the bell icon to actually get notified when those videos go live. Leave this video with a like on your way out, and don't forget to head over to our Twitter to see our discussion on the game, as well as interact with you guys. That's been it for me. I've been Frito for Clickheads. We'll see you guys next time.